This is what they don't tell you about building a god. You can't rush it. So how did the MCU's next Thanos-level threat become its biggest narrative waste? The promise was almost mythic. In the comics, Kang is more than a villain. He's a concept, a near-immortal master of time, an enemy with 1,000 faces, a man at war with his own destiny, trapped in an endless cycle of conquest and remorse. His very existence is a philosophical question about free will, and for a moment, in the series Loki, that promise was realized. The introduction of He Who Remains was a masterstroke of subtlety. He was a weary philosopher at the end of history, a gatekeeper whose threat wasn't a punch, but a chilling proposition. His death would unleash a multiversal war, waged by infinite, far worse versions of himself. The stakes were not physical, they were existential. We were promised a conceptual horror. Then came Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and that magnificent idea was systematically betrayed. The philosophical gatekeeper was reduced to a generic, banished dictator. The master of time was ironically trapped in a realm where time has no meaning, a narrative choice that conveniently weakened him. The true indignity, however, was his defeat. A being who weaponized eternity, who pruned entire timelines single-handedly, was beaten in a conventional brawl by Ant-Man, ultimately overwhelmed by a technologically advanced army of ants. This conclusion wasn't just unsatisfying, it was described as narratively cringe, a resolution so jarringly small for a threat that was sold as infinite. An ocean of possibility was channeled into a single, shallow stream. This failure wasn't just a single misstep. It was a flaw in the entire architecture of the Multiverse Saga. The Infinity Saga earned its villain. It built Thanos over a decade, using discrete post-credit scenes and subtle cameos to cultivate his presence. He was a whisper that grew into a storm, allowing the tension and audience investment to build organically. In stark contrast, Marvel simply imposed Kang all at once, without patience, without setup, without building any real tension. He was an event we were told was important, not one we were made to feel. Even his subsequent variants, from the awkward Victor Timely to the Council in the post-credit scene, failed to feel convincing or truly menacing, coming across as more awkward and embarrassing than threatening. And the final, crushing irony? The studio abandoned a multiversal character, a villain whose entire nature is defined by infinite faces and alternate selves. The real-world necessity of a change presented a perfect, in-universe narrative solution. A recast would have been brilliantly justified by the story's own logic, reinforcing the very concept of the character. But instead of a bold, creative choice that embraced the character's potential, they simply gave up on the idea, leaving a void at the center of their saga.